welcome to this week's edition of In Conversation With. My name is Nolizo Mshaba, and I'm so excited for our guest today who will talk with us about careers. So, as many of you know, with the Anzisha Prize, we often talk about entrepreneurship as a career, and I think many people just find that to be a mind blowing concept. But I think the more we unpack what we mean by that, we can better understand how to support this pathway for the young people who choose to pursue entrepreneurship. So, my guest today is Pamela Cherry. Pam, thank you so much for making time for this conversation. I think you are gonna, I think just in conversations I've had with you before, you have such valuable insights that our listeners will find useful and probably applicable in their lives. So let's just dive right into it. Pam, would you please tell us a little bit about yourself and the work that you do?
Thanks, Noddy. And hi to everyone that's listening to this. So, my name is Pam, like Noddy said, and I'm originally from Zambia, and I've been working and living in South Africa since 2005. I'm a career development coach, and my focus is mainly around early careers. And when I say careers, I'm referring to university students, graduates, and young professionals. So I coach that group. And my focus is around getting them geared for successful careers, regardless of what that looks like.
Great. Thank you so much, Pam. So many of our listeners, well, I guess with the Anzisha Prize, we tend to focus on a younger demographic than the students and young professionals that you coach. But I'm certain that there's a lot in what you do or in the conversations that you have that's applicable for even those younger future job seekers or job creators. So, my first question for you is, how do you think parents can support their child's career exploration?
Okay, so as a parent myself and someone who works with young people, I really am excited to answer this question. And I want to start off by saying that the most important thing I believe is to really spend time with your children and get to know them. With the age group that I deal with, when they get to tertiary, it's a lot harder to have certain conversations because decisions have been made. And so I think really getting to know your children and the individual, not what they're currently doing and what you would like them to do or what you think is the best career path for them, but to really get to know what makes them tick. So how you would do that would be to you could do a reflection exercise, which I often do with a lot of the people I coach. And the first thing would be asking what their interests are, and you'd be able to pick that up. I'm sure us as parents, we tend to know what our kids are interested in anyway. And so to really look out for that and get your child to write down the things that they find interesting. And it doesn't have to be limited to career. They might be interested in writing, they might be interested in research. And maybe they wouldn't use the word research, but they spend a lot of time online and they always on Google or they're on different sites and they're always coming to tell you new things they learned on YouTube. So to really understand what their interests are, it might be that your child is very hands-on and likes to play around with certain maybe breaking up things and fixing things. Looking at all those type of behaviors can tell you a lot about your child, and having conversations around that. So I'd encourage them to do a reflection exercise where they get their child to say 10 things that they find interesting, and with no agenda, without trying to define anything, and then to get them to list their strengths, and also as a parent to think what's my child pretty strong in, what are they talented in, what are their natural talents. And this can be both with sport, it can be academics, it can be their communication skills, and also to see what are growth areas. And the thing is, you get so many different types of personalities, which is exciting but also could be overwhelming for parents. So doing a reflection on their interests, their strengths, and then asking the question, what is your dream job? without judging
Mm-hmm.
it, and really just to listen. And I find as parents, we always want to prescribe or start to give advice, but I
Yeah.
challenge parents to just stop and listen and to ask the question why without any leading questions, but really explorative questions. So
Yeah.
why? What do you think that is about? What would you be like if you were in that position? What do you think you would be doing on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah.
And get them to talk about that. And also, how do you want to feel in your dream job? And I use the word
Mm.
job, but it should actually be career because, like you said, Nolly, some of them might be looking to be entrepreneurs and don't actually want to aspire towards getting a job.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's
Great.
what I would say as a starting point. Um,
Mm-hmm.
well, I just wanted to add, I would also encourage them to try out personality tests with their children. And you get a lot of free ones online. And the ones that I'm going to speak about will give you some sort of idea on a career's interest level. So the one is 16personalities.com.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
16personalities.com. It's very short. You go and answer a couple of questions. It wouldn't take more than 20 minutes. And from there, they'll
Yeah.
get to know about their personality, whether they're extroverted, introverted, um, whether they're intuitive or if they're more focused on the detail and the facts. And from that, you get a full report on suggested career paths that your child could potentially thrive in.
Okay. Great.
And then there's another career test on careerexplorer.com, which is also a nice place to start off because you answer questions, your child will get to answer questions that will give them an idea of where they might be strong or where they might actually find an interest in career-wise. And the third one is the Holland code quiz, which is another personality quiz that will just help guide with career awareness and really understanding potential career interest areas.
Great. Pam, there's some really wonderful nuggets in what you said that I wanted to just come back to, and that's the importance of actually, building a relationship and asking questions with the goal of understanding and learning, rather than asking a question just so you can prepare your response and prescribe what you think should be the thing to do. So I'm so glad that you highlighted that, because I just think about my conversations I've had with my parents in the past, when I was younger, where it's like, if they ask me, what is it that you want to do? And I'm there thinking, wait, should I say what I really want to do? What's the right answer? Is this a trick question? And I think that's something that many of us struggle with. Even, just I'm not a parent right now, but in conversations with younger people, I try to be mindful of the kind of um, energy that I'm putting out there, and trying to think, okay, how can I make this a safe enough space for this young person to share openly what their interests are, what their concerns are, and what their dreams are. So I really like how you framed. How you gave examples of questions that parents could use to frame those conversations with their children. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah, and Nolly, another thing about that is I would say the biggest reason why I have coaching sessions with a lot of people is because they never got the opportunity to be asked this question or to ask themselves these questions. And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
what drives the reason behind your study choice or your career choice? And a lot of the times it's my mom said I should do this, or I knew my uncle was an accountant, or
Yeah.
they were told that they can argue, so they should become a lawyer, but it wasn't necessarily what they would have naturally wanted to do. And what I've found is that a lot of young people today have so much access to information on the internet that we also have so much to learn from children at that age. And you might find that your child already has career awareness, and it's now that you really just need to support or guide that. um, so yeah, and another thing that I want to add is that the world is changing so quickly. There's careers that are emerging. I mean, there's people who are earning a salary as a blogger or a YouTube vlogger, influencers. There's so many career paths where people are earning millions and they're finding so much fulfillment. I mean, you could be a yoga instructor on YouTube and make so much money from that. And so it's really to walk the journey with your child and understand what makes them tick, what drives them, and to support that journey in a way that empowers them. And you'll find they'll thrive a lot quicker in whatever they go into because it's naturally what they wanted to go into.
Great. So you've mentioned some questions that parents should be asking, as well as activities that they could engage in to help support this career exploration. And I think the three examples you gave of personality tests are definitely a great start. I've done this 16 personalities test before, and it's something that our students at African Leadership Academy do in their first year, just as a way of, again, identifying as part of the one of the first units they do in entrepreneurial leadership to try and understand what they think their purpose is. And so I think that's one that I highly recommend, because it's also something that parents themselves can take, right? Just to be like, okay, what is it that I'm doing? What is it that I'm doing? Does it align with my own interests and my own passions? Yeah, so thank you for sharing those tools.
I have another one, Nolly, that I really swear by, and it should be the backbone of anyone's thinking and decision making when it comes to career related decisions is research. Research is huge, and I find that a lot of people rob themselves of opportunities just by avoiding or moving past research and maybe taking on information that they see. So it might be that their teachers, their life orientation teachers, or the students get to see what their parents do, and it's really limited to just that. But there's so much out there for them to learn internationally and locally. And whether you're looking to go into a job or you're looking to take the entrepreneurship route, research will take you to where you need to go to. And so I would encourage parents along with their children to do a lot of research, and research can be going to a university career center. It could be going online and looking at prospectuses to see what are the subjects that your child should be choosing, say in grade 10 or grade 9, to set them in the direction that they want to go to. Because you find a lot of high school students get to matric level or their final year of high school and they're applying for a certain qualification only to find that they don't meet the criteria or they chose the wrong subject. So I would definitely encourage them to do research in that regard, as well as going onto LinkedIn. There's so much knowledge there, and there's so many people that you can approach. Your children could find mentors on LinkedIn. They might find opportunities where they can get job shadowing. It could be job shadowing with an entrepreneur. It could be job shadowing at a bank. But the experience you get from actually being in the organization, working alongside a person who you're aspiring to, is so eye-opening, and it really brings context to what they think. They might find that what they expected wasn't really what it was, and it's just another type of learning that they can gain from.
Great. I think what you're talking about just makes me think of the power of networks. Oftentimes we think we have to, go really far out to identify those people who can help who can be the plug, so to speak, who can have conversations with our children. But I think one needs to just look around, like, who are your friends? What are your friends doing? What are people in your neighborhood doing? What are other parents at your child's school doing? And so I think that's a first level tapping into the network that comes to my mind. Yeah, cool. So, Pam, you mentioned entrepreneurship in in your last remarks, and I wanted to pivot slightly to that. When you think about someone who maybe wants to go into the medical field, that might be an easier conversation or an easier research plan for a parent to create with their child, right? Because it's like, okay, we'll go to this university's website. We see that people will tend to study biology, chemistry, and so on and so forth. So I wonder how some of these strategies that you've mentioned might apply if the children are transitioning into entrepreneurship rather than into formal studies, continuing studies, or into a more conventional or traditional 9 to 5 job.
So I would say that everything we've spoken about, minus the going to university career centers, would apply to parents whose kids are going into entrepreneurship as well. So I would still go through what we've spoken about, but there's more that they can consider. What I would like to encourage them to do is to instill certain values and to find ways to expose their children to certain values and skills. So, for instance, curiosity is huge, especially with where the world of work is going, regardless of whether you are an entrepreneur or you actually are an employer or you're aspiring either way. Curiosity is so important, and it kind of links to the research I'm talking about, to always be curious and to get the learners or their children, the students, to be solution focused, because when you're going into entrepreneurship, you're really there to solve a problem. And so getting them to really get into critical thinking, complex problem solving, curiosity, agility, resilience, flexibility, how can they attain those skills? And there's many ways they can do that. I spoke about getting vacation work experience. They could potentially join societies and clubs where they can get to practice this. They could maybe get their children to visit incubation hubs and spend some time around entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs who are on a program, entrepreneurship program. I know that the Alan Gray Orbis Foundation has a fellowship for students who are looking to go into entrepreneurship. So getting them exposed to that space, getting them curious about that space, and always getting them in the mindset of, no matter what the market looks like, no matter what the industry looks like, regardless of whether you do choose to go into a job, because you might be entrepreneurial in your spirit, but you might, depending on what you want to go into, have to go through the job market anyway. So to not have to not have the general gray areas of, oh, I'm going to be an entrepreneur, or oh, I'm going to get a job, but to really be fluid and say that regardless of which area I go into, I'm always going to be solution focused. So having the approach of being a consultant, if you are a consultant, you're really looking for a client whose problem you can solve. And so how can you instill that into your children? Going back to their networks, who in your friendships are you able to partner your child with, so your child can go spend some vacation time and really get to understand how to run a business? What are the challenges going to pitch to a client, actually taking the learner there? So how can you get your student to get your child to get first-hand experience where possible? But I would say it generally would apply regardless of whether they want to go into entrepreneurship or formal employment.
Okay. Pam, you have shared a wealth of information with us, and I'm so excited because a lot of the things you have said are points that have come up in our conversations with parents as well as with young entrepreneurs. And I especially like what you said about, the fact that no matter what the market looks like, there's essentially a certain way of thinking about employment, but also just about the future that needs to be developed in the young people in our lives. And, it's not about fixating on a particular job or a particular pathway, right? Because there are so many changes that happen in life. And so there's need for that flexibility or fluidity, as you said. And so it's great to hear from a professional, an expert in this field. And I think what you've shared with us are some really practical and actionable steps, as well as tools that I think can apply, whether no matter how old the children are, right? These are conversations that need to start happening a lot sooner than they tend to, I think. And so before we close off, I just wanted to give you an opportunity, if there's any additional advice or other thoughts that you would like to share. I mean, you've already shared so much with us, but I just wanted to give the opportunity before we wrap up.
Yeah, so what I would like to just add on or close with is just to encourage parents to also do research on their own. So to not leave it in the child's hands, but when you finally establish what your child wants to go into, to really understand what that career looks like, what is the future of that career, and how can you really support your child. I mean, it's very scary as a parent, to trust your child, and to trust what they want to go into. And I'll give you an example that's a bit unrelated, but before COVID happened, a lot of us parents were very strict about screen time. Like, you need your child on the iPad or whatever tablet they're on for 30 minutes or an hour max. And now our children are learning on these devices, and they spend most of their time on these devices. And a lot of them go into gaming, and they go into all these different types of new habits or behaviors that are very strange and different to us, because there's a huge generation gap. But it's to really understand, what is this new breed about, and what are they learning? They're learning in their gaming, they're learning online, they're learning in ways that we never did. And so to also, as a parent, stay curious and stay open to learn what this generation has to teach us.
Great. Pam, thank you so much for your time and really just sharing so many gems with us today. I look forward to continuing these conversations with you, because I think there's so much that we can learn, especially as we think about, in our work anyway, thinking about how we are preparing young people for the future of work, and particularly those who are thinking about entrepreneurship. What are the tools and strategies that they can apply, and how can we support parents as they support those journeys? So thank you so much, Pam, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you so much for having me, Nolly, and thanks to everyone listening.